On every empty highway, when the world feels wrong, you know the moment. The engine hums beneath you, the road stretches forever into darkness, and your headlights carve a lonely tunnel through the night. No houses, no traffic, no witnesses, just you and the quiet. But there is something about highways most people never realize. They are not just roads, they are corridors. Corridors where strangers pass each other without history, without identity, without accountability. Places where people disappear between exits, where stories begin and end without records, where the wrong person crossing your path can change everything. Tonight, I'm going to show you something most people never think about. 4 moments that happened on ordinary highways. 4 encounters that prove a terrifying truth about the modern world. The road is not empty. It only looks empty. Because long before GPS, before police radios, before cameras watching every intersection, highways were the perfect hunting grounds, and for certain people, they still are. There are men who wait for isolation the way predators wait for darkness. There are traps designed for drivers who think they're helping someone. And there are encounters so disturbing, survivors still question whether they escaped luck or something much worse. Tonight, you're going to hear 4 real encounters from the American highway system. But understand something before we begin. This isn't just about fear. Fear is what most people feel when they hear stories like these. But fear is surface level. What lies underneath these stories is something deeper, a pattern, a system of human behavior most people are too distracted to notice. Because the highway reveals something uncomfortable about our world. When civilization thins out, when streetlights disappear, when there are no crowds, cameras, and witnesses, you begin to see people exactly as they are. And once you see that truth, you can never unsee it again. So listen carefully, because the first story begins at a gas station most people would consider completely normal. A place open 24 hours, a place designed for travelers, a place where someone walked in late at night expecting nothing unusual, and instead, he locked eyes with something that should have warned him to leave immediately. But by the time he understood the danger, the highway was already waiting, and someone else was coming with him. It was just after 2 in the morning when he left his house. The kind of hour when the world feels suspended between yesterday and tomorrow. When most people are asleep, and the few who are awake are either working, traveling, or hiding from something. He had been coding for hours, one of those deep focus nights where time disappears and your brain runs on caffeine and silence. Eventually, hunger hit him all at once, the kind that makes you shut the laptop and grab your keys without thinking. There was only one place open that late. A small highway convenience store about 25 minutes from his rural town. To anyone from a city, that drive would feel absurd, but out there, it was practically next door. The road leading to the store wasn't a real interstate, just a long, narrow highway cutting through miles of dark farmland. At night, it felt like driving through an empty void. No traffic, no lights, just the road and the hum of tires against asphalt. The drive itself felt completely normal, and that's the thing about most dangerous moments. They don't announce themselves. They begin like every other ordinary night.
When he pulled into the parking lot, the fluorescent lights of the store felt almost comforting. Bright, artificial, safe. Inside, the place was quiet. He ordered a sandwich at the counter and wandered through the aisles while it was being prepared. He couldn't sit still, caffeine and restless energy pushing him to pace between shelves. That's when he noticed something strange. At first, his brain tried to ignore it. Down one of the aisles, at the far end near the refrigerators, someone was sitting on the floor, cross-legged, facing the glass doors like they were studying something inside. For a moment, he assumed he had imagined it. Then he looked again. No, there was definitely a person there. Brown coat, jeans, completely still. It was such an unnatural sight that curiosity took over. People don't sit on convenience store floors at 2 in the morning, especially not staring into refrigerators like they're trying to solve a puzzle. He decided to walk around the aisles and get a better look. Not obvious, just a quick glance. But the second he turned the corner, the man snapped his head toward him. Fast, too fast. And the moment their eyes met, something inside him went cold. Because there was something very wrong with the man staring back. His eyes were wide, too wide. His lips trembled slightly, like his body was vibrating from inside. But the worst part wasn't the twitching, or the strange posture, or even the unsettling stillness. It was the expression, or rather, the absence of one. The man wasn't angry. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't confused. He was staring at him with a completely empty face, like a corpse that had learned how to look at people. And in that silent moment, standing under the buzzing fluorescent lights, something instinctive whispered a warning most people learn to ignore. Leave, now. But the real danger hadn't even started yet. Because some predators don't reveal themselves inside the building. They wait until you're back on the road.
He looked away first. Not because the man threatened him, not because anything had actually happened, but because something deep in the human brain understands danger long before logic catches up. A silent instinct passed down through thousands of years of survival. Predators recognize eye contact. And something about that man's stare felt too close to that ancient rule. So he turned down another aisle and pretended to browse snacks. But his body had already shifted into a quiet state of alertness. You know the feeling. Your senses sharpen. Every sound seems louder. Every movement catches your attention. The store suddenly felt smaller, more confined. He waited near the counter for a sandwich, trying not to look back toward the aisle where the man had been sitting. But curiosity kept pulling his eyes in that direction. Half of him expected the man to appear from behind a shelf, slowly walking closer. The other half expected something worse. But minutes passed. Nothing happened. No footsteps, no movement. Eventually, his food was ready. The cashier slid the bag across the counter without even looking up. Just another tired employee surviving the graveyard shift. He grabbed the bag and headed for the door. By the time he stepped back outside, the strange tension inside the store had already started fading from his mind. That's another dangerous thing about the human brain. It normalizes threats very quickly. If something bad doesn't happen immediately, we convince ourselves it never will. He walked to his car, started the engine, and pulled out of the parking lot. For a moment, everything felt completely normal again. The store lights shrank in his rearview mirror as he turned back onto the empty highway.
Dark fields stretched endlessly on both sides of the road. No houses, no streetlights, just long, black silence. Then something moved, a quick flash in the corner of his eye. He glanced back toward the store. A figure burst out of the entrance, running, not jogging, not walking, running at full speed across the parking lot. Even from a distance, he recognized the brown coat. It was the man, the same man who had been sitting on the floor inside the store. And he wasn't running randomly. He was running toward a truck parked at the far end of the lot. The man jumped inside the driver's seat. The truck started instantly. And for a moment, the driver watched the headlights swing toward the highway, toward him. But then he told himself something most people would tell themselves. Relax, it's nothing. Maybe the guy just forgot something. Maybe he's leaving like everyone else. So he kept driving. The fluorescent lights of the gas station faded behind him, swallowed by darkness. Soon he was alone again on the highway. Or at least he thought he was. Because a few minutes later, a pair of headlights appeared in his rear-view mirror, and they were approaching much faster than they should have been.
At first, he assumed it was a police car. When headlights close distance that quickly on an empty highway, that's usually the explanation. The instinctive reaction kicked in immediately. He eased off the gas. His speed dropped slightly as the vehicle behind him continued gaining ground. For a moment, he prepared himself for the familiar annoyance of flashing red and blue lights, the inevitable conversation on the shoulder, the lecture about speeding. But the lights never flashed. Instead, the vehicle got closer, closer, until the headlights filled his rearview mirror. That's when he realized something wasn't right. The silhouette was wrong. Too tall, too wide, not a cruiser, a truck. And then something else clicked in his mind. The parking lot, the man in the brown coat, the truck he had jumped into. A quiet chill ran down his spine. The truck behind him surged forward again, closing the distance until it was practically touching his bumper. Then the headlights flashed. Not police lights, just the high beams, over and over. The horn blared once, long, aggressive. His heart rate spiked instantly. That's the moment when a human brain begins running survival calculations without you even realizing it. Why is this truck so close? Why is he honking? Why is he flashing his lights? And then a darker thought surfaced. What if he isn't trying to pass? He pressed the gas pedal again. The sedan accelerated back toward highway speed, 80, 90. The truck stayed with him, right behind him, matching every movement. The driver tried something simple. He switched lanes to the right, hoping the truck would shoot past him. But the truck moved too, sliding into the same lane, still glued to his rear bumper. Now the horn blasted again, and the headlights flashed repeatedly, flooding the interior of the car with white light. His hands tightened on the steering wheel. Something about this situation had crossed the invisible line between strange and dangerous. He tried slowing down again, thinking maybe the truck just wanted him to move. The moment his speed dropped, the truck slammed into the back of his car. The impact jolted the entire vehicle forward, not hard enough to spin him out, but hard enough to remove any doubt. This wasn't road rage. This wasn't a misunderstanding. The driver behind him wasn't trying to pass. He was trying to control the situation, trying to force him to stop, trying to create a moment of vulnerability on a dark highway where no one else existed. And suddenly, the man realized something chilling. The strange encounter inside the convenience store, the empty stare, the sprint across the parking lot, none of it had been random. From the moment their eyes met under those fluorescent lights, he had been chosen. And now, at nearly 100 miles per hour on an empty highway in the middle of nowhere, someone was trying to kill him.
Panic is loud. Movies make it look explosive, screaming, chaos, loss of control. But real panic is quieter than that. Real panic is a cold calculation that happens in seconds. Hands tighten on the wheel, eyes scan the road. Every instinct in your body begins asking one brutal question: how do I survive the next 30 seconds? The sedan was approaching 100 miles per hour now. At that speed, one mistake doesn't cause an accident, it causes a disaster. The truck behind him surged forward again, closer, closer. The headlights filled the entire rearview mirror like two white suns burning into his eyes. And then he felt it again. The truck rammed him a second time, harder. The car jerked violently, tires briefly losing grip before catching the asphalt again. For a split second, he imagined the car spinning sideways, flipping into the ditch, metal twisting, glass exploding, and the truck slowing down behind him. That image snapped something awake inside him. Fear disappeared. Survival took over. Because when death feels close enough to touch, a strange clarity arrives. The human mind becomes brutally simple. No hesitation, no doubt, just action. He realized something critical in that moment. The truck had more power than his sedan. If the driver kept hitting him, eventually he would lose control, which meant the only chance he had was unpredictability. The truck began accelerating again, preparing for another hit. He could see it coming. The headlights shifted slightly. The distance closed. The truck was about to ram him again. And at the exact moment the grille of the truck filled his mirror, he swerved sharply into the left lane and slammed the brakes hard. The sudden deceleration was violent. The seatbelt locked against his chest as the sedan slowed rapidly. Behind him, the truck driver reacted too late. The massive vehicle shot forward past him like a missile, the driver desperately jerking the wheel to regain control. For a moment, the truck fishtailed across the highway. Left, right, the tires screamed against the pavement. Then the truck spun completely sideways. Momentum carried it off the road, tearing through the shoulder and launching into the dark field beside the highway. The driver watched the chaos unfold through his windshield. The truck disappeared into the darkness, metal crashing through dirt and grass somewhere beyond the roadside. Then silence returned. Just the sound of his own engine and the violent pounding of his heart. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely hold the wheel. For several seconds, he just sat there in the empty highway lane, staring into the darkness where the truck had vanished. Every instinct told him to leave, right now, because the most dangerous mistake someone can make in a situation like this is assuming it's over. He pressed the gas again. The sedan accelerated down the highway, away from the crash, away from the gas station, away from the man with the dead eyes. He didn't stop until he reached home. And even then, even after calling the police, even after the night ended, one question refused to leave his mind. Why him? Why had that man in the store stared at him like that? Why had he run to the truck? Why chase him?
because sometimes the most disturbing part of surviving something like this is realizing there may have never been a reason at all. Just a predator and an empty highway.
The second story begins hundreds of miles away. Different highway, different night, different driver. But the same quiet illusion that highways are simply roads between places. In the summer of 2022, a 25-year-old logistics driver spent most nights doing something few people have the patience for anymore. Driving long distances alone. His company specialized in something unusual, delivering refurbished electronics and custom computer parts to rural towns most major companies ignored. Places where the nearest distribution hub might be hours away, which meant his routes often ran deep into parts of the Southwest most Americans only see on maps. Long highways cutting through desert, forests, and endless stretches of land where cell signals vanish and the radio fades into static. Most people would hate that job, but he didn't mind it. He grew up in a road-tripping family. Long drives didn't bother him. In fact, he enjoyed the isolation, music playing, the road stretching endlessly forward, and the strange freedom that comes when you realize nobody knows exactly where you are. But isolation has another side most drivers learn eventually, because when you are the only car on the road, you are also the easiest target on it. That particular night, he was driving the final stretch of a delivery run, Phoenix to Lovington, a long route that forced him through southern New Mexico near the edge of Lincoln National Forest. If you've never driven through that region at night, it's difficult to explain how empty it feels. The road narrows, the forest closes in, and sometimes you can drive 20 or 30 minutes without seeing another vehicle. That night, the clock on the dashboard read 1 a.m. His headlights cut through the darkness as he rounded a bend on Route 82, and that's when he saw something ahead on the shoulder. A red hatchback, parked awkwardly in the gravel, hazard lights blinking, slow, steady, blink, blink, blink. Standing beside the car was a woman, her arm raised high into the air, holding her phone, slowly turning it as if searching for a signal. Most drivers face a silent moral test in moments like this. Do you stop, or do you keep driving? Because deep down, everyone knows something uncomfortable. Helping strangers on a deserted highway can either make you a good person or make you a victim. He slowed the truck slightly as he passed her. The woman noticed immediately. She rushed toward the passenger side of his vehicle, her movements quick, almost desperate. When she reached the door, she tried the handle. Locked. He lowered the window just a few inches. That's when she spoke. Her voice was shaky, rushed, slightly slurred. She said her car had broken down. She couldn't get a signal. She just needed a ride to the nearest gas station. Simple request, reasonable. But something about the situation felt wrong. Not obviously dangerous, just slightly off. The kind of feeling people often ignore because they don't want to appear paranoid. But instincts exist for a reason, and his instincts were about to prove something important. Sometimes, danger doesn't approach you from behind you on the highway. Sometimes, you stop and let it into your car.
He hesitated, just for a few seconds. But hesitation is the moment where instincts and morality begin arguing with each other. because the scene in front of him looked painfully normal. A young woman, stranded on a dark road, hazard lights blinking behind her, phone raised helplessly toward the sky. Anyone with a conscience imagines the same thing in that moment. Your sister, your girlfriend, someone you care about standing alone in the dark, hoping a stranger will stop. That thought is powerful. It overrides caution. It pushes people into decisions they wouldn't normally make. But this driver had one small advantage. He wasn't completely defenseless. Under the steering column of the truck, within easy reach, was a compact firearm he kept for situations exactly like this. Technically, the company never gave him permission to carry it, but anyone who spends enough nights on empty highways learns something quickly. Rules matter less than survival. So he convinced himself the situation was manageable. He unlocked the passenger door. The woman opened it immediately and climbed inside quickly, almost too quickly. She shut the door and exhaled hard. "Thank you. Seriously, thank you so much," she said, still sounding slightly breathless. But something about her voice still carried that strange jittery edge, like someone whose mind was racing faster than their words. He glanced at her briefly. Mid-20s, dark hair, nothing obviously threatening. But her eyes moved around the cab of the truck constantly, scanning everything. People who are genuinely stranded usually look relieved. She looked alert. He put the truck back into gear but didn't start driving immediately. Instead, he asked simple questions. What happened to the car? Did it just stall? Did you hit something? Normal conversation, normal curiosity. But every answer she gave felt vague, deflecting. She kept interrupting him with the same request. "Can we just go? Please, just drive. Let's just get to the gas station." Her tone grew more impatient with every second, and that uneasy feeling returned stronger than before. The driver slowly turned his head to look back toward the red hatchback one more time. And that's when the illusion shattered. Because from behind the car, a man stepped into the road. He hadn't been there before. He had been hiding, standing in the darkness where the headlights couldn't reach. For a split second, the driver froze. The man in the road held something long in his hands. Maybe a bat, maybe a pipe. Hard to tell in the dark. But whatever it was, he wasn't holding it casually. He was holding it like someone preparing to stop a vehicle. Then the driver noticed something even worse. Another figure moving behind the hatchback, which meant the woman sitting beside him hadn't been stranded. She had been bait. And the moment he realized that truth, his survival instincts took control of the situation. Because there are moments in life where politeness can get you killed. And this was one of them. The human brain has an emergency switch, a primitive mechanism buried deep inside the nervous system that activates the moment a threat becomes undeniable. It shuts down hesitation. It shuts down social politeness. It replaces confusion with one command: move. The driver didn't argue. He didn't ask the woman another question. He slammed the accelerator to the floor. The truck roared forward, tires kicking gravel behind them as the vehicle surged down the dark highway. The man standing in the road jumped sideways just in time, disappearing into the darkness as the truck shot past him. Inside the cab, the woman twisted around violently in her seat to look back. Her entire demeanor changed in an instant. The helpless tone vanished. The nervous victim disappeared. Now she looked angry, panicked, like a plan had just collapsed. "What are you doing?" she shouted. But the driver didn't answer. His focus was locked on the road ahead, because now another danger sat directly beside him.
The woman turned forward again and began digging through her purse, fast, desperate. Anyone who has spent time around violence recognizes certain movements instantly. That frantic search, that urgency, whatever she was reaching for, it wasn't good. Before she could pull anything out, the driver made his next decision. With one hand still on the steering wheel, he reached down beneath the dash and lifted the firearm into view. He didn't point it at her. He didn't threaten her. He simply placed it on top of the steering wheel where she could see it clearly. The effect was immediate. Her hands froze. The purse remained half open in her lap. The shouting stopped. Silence filled the cab. For the next 30 seconds, neither of them spoke. The truck continued down the dark highway at high speed. Then, something strange happened. Instead of arguing, instead of begging, instead of trying to escape, the woman simply stared forward. Her face became expressionless, like she had already accepted the outcome. The driver realized something unsettling. This wasn't her first time doing this, which meant the men hiding behind that car had probably succeeded before. And the thought of what might have happened to other drivers if they had made a slightly different decision stayed in his mind for the rest of the night. After about 30 minutes, they reached a gas station in the town of Artesia. Bright lights, semi-trucks parked nearby, people moving around. The driver pulled into the lot and stopped the truck. Then he turned toward her. "Get out," he said calmly. At first, she refused, mumbling excuses, but he leaned across the seat, opened the passenger door, and forced her out of the vehicle. She stumbled onto the pavement, yelling something incoherent. A nearby truck driver began jogging toward them, confused by what he had just witnessed. But the delivery driver didn't stay to explain. He shouted one warning about the woman's intentions, then drove away immediately. He didn't want questions, he didn't want police reports, he just wanted distance. But later, at another gas station, something chilling revealed itself. When he checked the passenger seat, he found two things wedged between the cushions: a disposable burner phone battery and a sealed pack of zip ties, tools that serve only one purpose: restraint, control, disappearance. And in that moment, he realized something that changed the way he viewed highways forever. Some traps aren't accidents. Some stranded motorists are not victims. Sometimes, the real danger is the person asking you for help.
By now, you're probably noticing something. Highway horror rarely begins with violence. It begins with a decision to look, a decision to stop, a decision to help. Most traps rely on something simple, the belief that human beings are fundamentally good. That belief is powerful. It's the reason people pull over when they see flashing hazard lights. It's the reason drivers slow down when someone waves for help. And it's the reason predators have learned to design situations that look harmless. The second story ended with zip ties and a burner phone, silent evidence of a plan that almost worked. But the third encounter is different. This time, the danger didn't come from a chase or a staged breakdown. It came from something much stranger, something that didn't make sense at all. 3 years ago, a couple was driving across the United States, a long road trip from Utah to Georgia. Not the fastest route, not the most direct one either, but the husband wanted to see parts of the country he had never visited before.
That meant cutting through long sections of empty highway where the landscape looks like it hasn't changed in 100 years. Places where farmland stretches for miles, where towns appear every 100 miles like small islands of light in a dark ocean. By the time they reached western Kansas, night had already fallen. A long stretch of U.S. Route 400 stretched in front of them. 100 miles of nothing but open farmland. No cities, no real traffic, just a thin ribbon of road cutting through endless fields. The wife had fallen asleep hours earlier in the passenger seat. Some people can sleep anywhere when they're tired enough. Cars, planes, long highway drives. When she finally woke up, the car was slowing. Her husband had pulled into a small roadside gas station. Not the kind you see in cities, just a single building, a few fuel pumps, and a dim sign buzzing under yellow light. It was around 10 p.m. Her husband stepped out to fill the tank and grab snacks. She decided to go inside and use the restroom. Simple, routine, nothing unusual. She didn't bring her phone, didn't bring her purse, just stepped out of the car and walked into the store. Inside, the place was quiet. The cashier was an older man standing behind the counter who barely looked up when she entered. The bathrooms were down a narrow hallway toward the back. Dim lighting, quiet, the kind of place that feels slightly uncomfortable even when nothing is happening. She opened the women's restroom door and nearly walked straight into someone standing inside, another woman. But the moment their eyes met, something felt deeply wrong. Because the woman standing there looked like she had been waiting for someone to walk through that door. And the way she stared made it clear she had no intention of leaving.
At first glance, the woman looked like someone you might see in any run-down roadside town. But the longer she stood there, the more unsettling the details became. Her hair was gray and messy, not just messy from travel, but tangled and sticky like it hadn't been washed in days. She wore cheap foam flip-flops that made a soft slap, slap, slap sound every time she shifted her weight. And wrapped around her shoulders was a thick coat, purple and green, heavy, the kind of coat someone would wear in winter. Except this was Kansas, in the middle of summer, and it was nearly 80 degrees outside. In one hand, she held a small plastic grocery bag, tied tightly at the top. The woman didn't say hello, didn't apologize for nearly bumping into her. She just stared, not casually, not briefly, a fixed, silent, expectant stare, like someone waiting for instructions. The traveler felt the tension immediately, the kind of discomfort that makes your body instinctively want to leave a room. But social instincts kicked in first. She gave a polite nod, tried to step around the woman, but the woman didn't move right away. For a moment, she just stood there, blocking the path, then slowly stepped aside. The traveler walked to the nearest stall and locked the door. Inside the small metal space, the strange encounter replayed in her mind. Something about that woman had felt wrong, not threatening exactly, just unnatural. People don't stare like that without speaking. People don't wear winter coats in 80-degree weather, and people definitely don't stand silently in a gas station bathroom like they're waiting for someone specific. She sat there for a moment, trying to shake off the uneasiness. Then she heard the soft slap of flip-flaps again. Slap, slap, slap. The woman had moved toward the sinks, but something strange followed. The sink never turned on. No running water, no paper towels, no mirror noises. Just silence. Complete silence.
which meant the woman wasn't washing her hands, she wasn't fixing her hair, she wasn't doing anything people normally do in a restroom. She was just standing there, waiting. Minutes passed. The traveler sat perfectly still in the stall, suddenly very aware of one mistake. She had left her phone in the car. No way to text her husband, no way to call anyone. Just her and the strange woman standing silently on the other side of a thin metal door. Finally, the flip-flops moved again. Slap, slap, slap. Toward the exit. The restroom door opened, then slammed shut. Relief flooded through her body. She waited a few seconds just to be sure. Then another thought crept in. Something faint, something quiet, a sound she hadn't noticed before. Breathing. Not hers, someone else's. Still inside the bathroom. And suddenly, she understood something terrifying. The woman had never left. She had only pretended to.
The moment she realized that, her entire body went still. Not the kind of stillness you choose, the kind your body forces on you when it senses danger nearby. Her breathing slowed automatically, her ears strained to pick up every sound in the room. Because if the woman had faked leaving, it meant something else was happening. Something deliberate, some kind of game. Outside the stall door, the bathroom was quiet, but the breathing was still there, soft, slow. Someone standing somewhere inside the room, just out of sight, waiting. The traveler sat frozen on the toilet seat, barely daring to move. Every horror scenario imaginable began forming in her mind. Maybe the woman was hiding near the door. Maybe she was crouched beside the sinks. Maybe she was holding something, a knife, a weapon, or maybe something even worse. Minutes stretched longer and longer. Time behaves strangely when fear takes over. 10 seconds can feel like a full minute. 1 minute can feel like 10. Still, the breathing continued, slow, patient, and that patience was the most disturbing part, because normal people don't hide silently in bathrooms. Predators do. Eventually, the bathroom door opened again. Footsteps crossed the floor, then the door closed once more. The breathing stopped. The traveler exhaled quietly, relief washing through her body. But the relief didn't fully settle, because something about the entire situation felt wrong, too controlled, too intentional. Still, she waited another 30 seconds just to be safe. Then she slowly reached for the lock. The metal latch clicked quietly as she turned it, and just as she was about to push the stall door open, a loud gasp exploded from somewhere inside the bathroom. Not outside, inside, like someone had just been holding their breath for far too long. The bathroom door opened again, then slammed shut once more. That was the moment her fear turned into pure terror. The woman had pretended to leave twice, which meant the entire performance had been intentional. She had been trying to trick her into coming out, trying to catch her the moment she stepped out of that stall. But why? The traveler didn't know, and in that moment, she didn't care. Her only focus was survival. Because whatever that woman had planned, it clearly depended on one thing: getting her alone. For a long moment, she didn't move. Her hand stayed frozen on the stall latch, because now every possibility felt dangerous. If the woman was still inside,
Opening the door would expose her. If the woman had actually left, waiting too long might mean running into her outside instead. Both options carried risk. Fear has a way of magnifying uncertainty. Your brain begins replaying the same question over and over again. What if she's still there? The bathroom had gone completely silent again. No breathing, no footsteps, no flip-flops. Just the faint hum of an old ventilation fan somewhere in the ceiling. Finally, the tension became unbearable. Slowly, carefully, she pushed the stall door open. The metal hinges creaked slightly as it swung outward. Her eyes scanned the bathroom instantly. The sinks, the corners, behind the door. Empty. The strange woman was gone, at least for now. Relief hit her in a sudden wave, but it didn't erase the uneasiness. She washed her hands quickly, barely glancing at the mirror. Every second inside that room now felt dangerous. When she stepped out into the hallway leading back to the store, the fluorescent lights suddenly felt much brighter than before. The old convenience store looked exactly the same as when she entered. The old cashier stood behind the counter. A large man was paying for something near the register. Everything looked normal. But fear changes the way you see ordinary places. Every corner looks suspicious. Every shadow feels like someone watching. She lingered near a rack of snacks near the door, pretending to browse. But really, she was waiting for the large man to leave first, because walking outside alone suddenly felt the worst idea imaginable. After a moment, the man finished his purchase and headed toward the exit. Perfect. She followed a few steps behind him, not close enough to be obvious, but close enough to feel safer. The door chimed softly as they stepped outside. Cool night air replaced the stale smell of the store. For half a second, she allowed herself to relax. Maybe the whole thing had been paranoia. Maybe the woman had just been strange. Maybe she had already left the area. Then she saw her, standing just a few feet away from the entrance, waiting. The same tangled gray hair, the same heavy coat despite the summer heat, the same locked, silent stare. But this time, something else was different. The woman's hand held an object, long, metal, reflecting the yellow light from above. It looked like a knife, and the way she held it, low, hidden beside her leg, made one thing painfully clear. She hadn't been playing games in that bathroom for no reason. She had been waiting for the right moment. And if the traveler had stepped outside alone, that moment might have arrived.
For a split second, the world seemed to slow down. Fear does that. It stretches time, sharpens details, forces your brain to capture every movement like a photograph. The traveler stood just outside the gas station door, half a step behind the large man who had walked out moments before her. And off to the side of the building, the woman waited, still, watching. The yellow light above the entrance flickered softly, reflecting off the thin strip of metal in her hand. It wasn't a large knife, but it didn't need to be. Up close, even a small blade becomes terrifying. The woman's body posture made the situation even more disturbing. She wasn't standing casually. She was slightly crouched, weight leaning forward, like someone preparing to move very quickly. Predators in the wild often move the same way just before attacking,
quiet, tense, focused. The traveler's heart began pounding in her chest so loudly she could hear it in her ears. Her mind raced through options: run, scream, fight. But none of those choices felt safe, because they all depended on the woman reacting, and no one could predict what someone like that might do. Then, something unexpected happened. The strange woman suddenly turned away, without speaking, without making eye contact again. She simply walked around the side of the building toward the darkness behind the gas station. Just like that, gone. The traveler didn't wait to understand why. The moment the path cleared, she ran, across the parking lot, straight to the car. She yanked open the passenger door and jumped inside. Her husband looked over from the driver's seat, confused. "What took you so long?" he asked. Her hands were shaking as she slammed the door shut. "Just drive," she said quickly. "Now." He didn't argue. The engine started, and the car pulled away from the pumps. Only once they were back on the highway did she finally begin explaining everything. The strange woman, the bathroom, the fake exits, the breathing, the knife. Her husband listened in silence as the dark highway stretched ahead of them. When she finished, he glanced over at her and shook his head slightly. Not angry, just concerned. "You should have taken your phone," he said. And he was right, because situations like that leave people with a painful realization. Sometimes survival comes down to small choices. A phone left in the car, a bathroom entered alone, a stranger standing quietly in a place where they shouldn't be. As their car merged back onto the highway, the gas station lights shrank in the distance behind them. But before the building disappeared completely, the traveler looked back through the rear window. And there she was, standing at the edge of the building again, watching their car drive away, still holding something in her hand, still completely silent. The image stayed with her long after that night ended, because sometimes the most disturbing part of an encounter isn't what someone does, it's what they almost did, and how close you came to being alone when it happened. But the final story tonight may be the most unsettling of all, because sometimes the danger doesn't come from someone asking for help or someone waiting in the dark. Sometimes it comes from someone who follows you patiently, quietly, for miles, waiting for you to make one mistake on an empty highway.
By this point, he knew something was terribly wrong. The forest had gone completely silent. No wind, no insects, no distant animals, just silence. The kind of silence that makes your ears ring. He stood there for a moment, gripping the flashlight so tightly his fingers hurt. The beam shook slightly as he scanned the trees around him. Then he heard it again. Footsteps, not far away this time. Slow, heavy, deliberate. Crunch, crunch, crunch. They were moving closer. His heart began pounding so loudly he was sure whatever was out there could hear it. He turned the flashlight toward the sound, sweeping the beam between the trees. Nothing, just endless trunks and shadows. But then something moved, about 30 feet away. At first, it looked like another tree, tall, thin, standing perfectly still. But then the shape shifted, and he realized something that made his stomach drop. It wasn't a tree.
It was standing there, watching him. The figure was unnaturally tall. Its arms hung too long at its sides, almost touching the ground. The flashlight beam barely illuminated its outline, but he could see its head slowly tilt to one side, like it was studying him. Neither of them moved. For several seconds, they just stared at each other. Then, suddenly, the thing took one step forward, and that's when he ran. Branches whipped across his face as he sprinted blindly through the woods. His lungs burned, his legs screamed, but he didn't dare stop. Behind him, he could still hear it, those same slow footsteps, still following. Crunch, crunch, crunch. And the most terrifying part? They never got faster. No matter how fast he ran, they stayed the same distance behind him, like it knew he couldn't escape.
He didn't stop running. Branches tore at his jacket. His boots slipped on wet leaves as he pushed deeper through the forest, barely able to see where he was going. His lungs burned. Every breath felt like knives in his chest. But the footsteps behind him never stopped. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Still calm, still steady, like whatever was following him didn't need to rush. After what felt like forever, he suddenly saw something ahead through the trees, a faint glow, light, a road. He burst out of the forest and nearly collapsed onto the gravel shoulder of a small rural road. His flashlight slipped from his hand as he dropped to his knees, gasping for air. For several seconds he couldn't even move. Then, slowly, he turned back toward the forest. The trees stood there in total darkness, silent, empty. There were no footsteps anymore. No movement, nothing. Just a wall of black woods staring back at him. He stayed there for a long time, trying to convince himself it was over. Eventually, a passing truck stopped and gave him a ride back to town. He didn't explain much, just said he got lost while hiking. But before he left the forest road, he looked back one last time, and that's when he noticed something that still bothers him to this day. Right at the edge of the tree line, there were footprints in the dirt. Not animal tracks, not human either. They were long, thin, and far apart, like whatever made them had taken impossibly large steps. The tracks stopped exactly where the forest ended, as if the thing had followed him all the way to the road, and then simply watched him leave. He never went hiking alone again, and to this day he still wonders one thing. If he had stopped running, would those footsteps behind him have finally caught up?